Hello, my name is Nathan Stuke here from Wisper University, and today I've got Layne Sisk on with me, and we're going to talk all about books. But Layne, I've known you now for, holy cow, are we pushing like 10, 12, 13 years? You've been a great friend, but I hate doing introductions even when I know the person. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So my name's Layne Sisk. I am the CEO. My business card says CEO and janitor at Server Plus. And I kind of do whatever has to get done. I've been an avid reader pretty much my whole life. I've shifted the direction of what I read now. I used to read a lot of fiction that was for me. Now I read a lot of nonfiction because it's actually to help my business. I'm the father of 3 kids, got a wonderful wife, and she puts up with me. She's put up with me for 33 years, which says something about her. And I have 2 fantastic grandkids. In fact, behind me, you can see that little handprint up there. That's the handprint of one of my kids. So
nice. And the company you have is Server Plus. And tell us a little bit about what Server Plus does and how does it fit into like the Wisp ecosystem or the ISP ecosystem?
Sure. Yeah. Server Plus has been, we've been in business for a little over 20 years. We do outsourced technical support for ISPs, both 24/7 as well as just like an after hours, weekends and overflow. And then I'm also in the last couple of years have gotten involved with another company as well, Real Choice TV. I was a partner, and now I'm the sole owner of that, and started that about 4 years ago, which is an IPTV solution. So I spent a lot of time doing both those things. My wife wasn't particularly thrilled when I said, "Yeah, I'm going to take on a second full-time job." But
right. Yeah, and I'm sure everything goes so well. You don't need to learn anything new. You've already learned everything you need to know, right? That's the way all businesses works. It's easy.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why I don't know. There was I had somebody the other day. I saw somebody I think tweeted out, and they said, I'm always afraid that somebody's going to come up to me one day and go, "Okay, you got to quit pretending to be an adult because you're not really an adult." And I've always had that fear that someone's going to come up to me and say, "You got to quit pretending to be a CEO because you don't really know what you're doing." So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, before we get started, I want to remind everybody, put your comments in online there, and we'll answer questions. We'll take questions. Layne and I love being on sessions together with Wispa and just kind of talking about all kinds of stuff. So hopefully we'll have some fun with this. Speaking of not being worthy of being the CEO, I saw a meme. I'm not on Facebook at all, but my wife showed me a meme, and it was Elon Musk kind of like staring off thinking, and it says, working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and people still call me. And that's what it is. And it's like, Wisper, we've been around for almost 18 years now, and I still have people come up to me and say, "Wow, that's amazing. It's an amazing story. You're so lucky, or you're so, isn't it cool how fast things happen?" And I'm like, fast? We're an overnight success story, 18 years in the making. It's crazy. It's definitely crazy. So you said you were an avid book reader from the beginning, but you shifted. What do you remember? What was going through your mind when you were like, "Oh, maybe I better stop reading these fantasy books and start reading, books that help me with business"?
So I would like to say that I'm 100% dedicated to business books, but I'm typically reading about 4 books at any one time.
Wow.
I usually am reading some type of fiction. I'm a big Stephen King fan and that kind of stuff. So I like to read that. I also like science fiction, fantasy type stuff. Robert Jordan, that kind of stuff. So I've read all of that type of stuff. But then I'm also, usually those books I reserve to do on audio, and I will only do them while I'm exercising. So it motivates me to exercise because I won't allow myself to listen to them if I'm not exercising. And then I've started to, I think in college, my mind kind of shifted, and I started looking at realizing, the Dunning-Kruger effect. The more you know you don't know. And I'm starting now to recognize that there's a lot of, I've recognized over the years there's so much I don't know. And so I started off reading more self-improvement books, and then it went to, okay, well, I'm going to run a business. I better look at some business improvement books to help the business grow.
Yeah, I can remember I woke up in 2008 and said, oh crap, I own a real business, right? I have 17 families. That means I have 17 employees, 17 families relying on me to make good decisions. I better figure out how to do this and do this well. And I turned to books because, a lot of people, it's a badge of honor. Like, I haven't read a book since college. Well, that's actually not an award I want to win, right? Because you need to keep learning and things change. And you're absolutely right. The more you know, the more you don't know. And we really have to be able to grow into our roles, because I don't know about you, but when I started Wisper 18 years ago, I am using totally different skills now today to run Wisper with almost 200 employees than I was using to run Wisper when it was just me in a bucket truck out of my garage running Wisper. So you have to be able to scale.
I mean, we started off when we started 20 years ago. We rented 3 seats in someone else's call center, and we were taking calls and logging them on an Excel spreadsheet. And that was, wow. And from there we built our own phone system, our own ticketing system. We built everything because we kept realizing how much we needed and couldn't find somebody else who had what we needed.
Yeah. Now let me guess. The call center you were renting space from, they weren't a competitor of yours, right? They didn't do what you did in your space, or were you competing with them?
No, we rented space. It was actually a long distance carrier.
Okay.
It's a couple seats in their call center, and they were our long distance carrier. So that's who we used to get started.
Yeah, I think that shows just like how scrappy you have to be. It's like, oh, I don't have to have this huge office. I don't have to have all these things. Who wants me to use a lot of their services? Oh, the long distance carrier, especially back then. Right now, nothing's long distance, but back then it used to be. So hey, could I have 3 spots, please? I think that's a lot of people miss that when they're starting a business. They do all this business analysis and they have to have this great idea and they think they've got it all figured out, but it takes them 5 years to figure it all out. And by the time they figure it out, it's all changed, but you just got to kind of jump in.
Well, and I joke, where we're located is called, they call it Silicon Slopes. And there's so many companies. I mean, Adobe's here and Microsoft is here, and so many of these companies, Omniture, all these companies that have grown here. And it's interesting because a lot of these companies get venture capital money, and I'll be in one of these companies and I'll see truckloads of new computers showing up from Dell. And I was there one day and one of my guys said, how come we don't get that? And I said, it's okay. We'll get that in about 8 months when they go bankrupt and we buy it at the auction. These guys all went out and had to buy the newest and the best of everything. Mm-hmm. And rather than look at it and say, how can we bootstrap it and do it as inexpensively as possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any favorite books that you love for business side that you're like, hey, this really set me on the right course? Do you have any favorites that come to mind?
Well, I have. I was just showing. I got a stack right here, just a couple.
Might have to narrow it down a little bit.
But these are a few of my favorites.
Look at that.
And I got a bookshelf over here that's about 5 times that size. But I would say from a business point of view, one of my favorites was, at least to get started, was the E-Myth.
Oh yeah.
It's a great book to kind of get you, do you belong as a business? Not really what you should be doing. So I really enjoyed the E-Myth. I like Built to Last. Some of those books that talk about kind of the overall goals. And then on the management side, I like to look into the books that kind of help me because my management skills, I joke with my brother, he got a bachelor's of arts in business management, and I got a bachelor's of science in business management. And we kind of joke that there's really a difference.
Oh yeah.
because my idea is, I've got this and I want finances to go this way and I want it's all about numbers.
Right.
And I tell him all the time, I said, I didn't take the classes where we hold hands and sing Kumbaya together. I took the other classes. So now I've had to learn, okay, how do I do those things to make people feel? In fact, right now, this is a book I think a lot of people would like. This is one I'm working my way through.
There we go. Yeah. Oh, the virtual code. Yeah.
And this is about how you create a culture when everybody's working virtually, which is what we've done and most companies have done. So this is one that I'm partway through reading right now, as you can see my bookmark here. But this is a good one that I wouldn't have read 3 years ago, but now it's kind of become an important read.
Yeah. Now, so you had a call center. Have you guys gone all virtual? Are you bringing people back in? What's your long-term plans, short-term plans?
We had 3 offices. We shut down all but one office, and that was the building that we owned, so we couldn't really shut it down. But
that landlord, he's probably
not very
reasonable. Wouldn't let you. Yeah.
But we got everybody. We got it. Even here, we only have 2 call center employees here that come in to work. Wow. Everybody works from home, and it's there's been a whole new set of challenges, like it talks about in that book. We've got to figure out now, instead of how do you have somebody that's looking over somebody's shoulder and helping them and coaching them? How do you do that virtually? Mm-hmm. And how do you create a culture when a lot of these people have never met each other? And we used to hire exclusively inside Utah. And now we found that hiring inside Utah is not, we're not stuck with that. We have other options. So I would say, like, for example, right now, close to 20% of our workforce are based out of Texas.
Wow.
Because Texas has been a hotbed for us to hire.
Mm-hmm.
The only rule we have is you don't hire anybody who works in California or New York, because both of those employment laws in those states are impossible to deal with. But
yes, they are. So how do you think, so you're reading the virtual culture, and how are you taking it and then applying it to the real world, like really what you're dealing with? Because like when I've read some books, I've never read a book that's like, you're in this exact situation. Wow, that's me. Like mirror, they wrote it for me. And then this is exactly what I need to do. So how do you bridge that gap and take what you learn from a book and push it into your business?
Well, one of the things for me that I found is I heard something the other day, and I, sometimes you hear a talk or somebody mentioned something, and you're like, that kind of hurt a little bit. And
hit a little too close to home.
Yes,
Ooh,
exactly.
Yeah.
So somebody said, I want to make sure that my company is not running the Heathrow Airport School of Business. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, what I mean is the CEO goes on a trip and he forgot the book he was supposed to get. So he is in Heathrow Airport. He picks up a book, reads it on the airplane, and comes back and wants to change the whole company based on what he read in that one book. And I thought, wow, that kind of hurt a little, because I've done that before.
Multiple times. Guilty as charged multiple times.
So I was like, wow, okay, I learned something from that. But it helped me see, when I read a book, I now try to take that book myself, digest it for a little bit. I try never to implement something from a book in the first 30 days after I read it now. Okay. I wait till 30 days after I've read it to see if I still think it applies. Then if I do, then I'll bring that information in to the company. Because before, I would be like, I felt like I'd come in with a new book every week, and everyone just kind of got sick of me. They're like, just shut up and quit.
Right.
I went in the last 4 and you got another one.
Yeah. We haven't even finished implementing that. Why are you on to this new one? Yeah.
So I think that's important. That's been important for me anyway, to do that. Okay. Then there are a few that I think are just, they're core books. They're the ones that you read, books like Traction. We know that's the direction we want to go. Now, what other books complement that? And the ones that contradict that, obviously, are, that's not the kind of stuff you want. But I haven't found anything that I think is a quality business book hasn't had a lot of contradiction with what's in Traction.
No, and I think you're right. What I've picked up on is it's not a contradiction. They usually support each other, and they just use words. core values versus your mission statement versus I mean, it's all the same stuff. I don't know who says it, but somebody has a quote out there that says there's nothing new, right? Nothing new in business. It's all just a repackaging and oh, that makes a lot of sense. And sometimes it takes an outside person to frame it up just right for you. What I found that I like to do is go back and read books that I've already read. Because you're like, wait a minute, I have 300 of them in my library, and there's always so many more books to read. I can't read them all, but I'll go back and read a book and be like, oh, that's what they were really talking about there. Because in my mind, I was thinking one thing because of where I was in my business journey. And then years later, I'm in a totally different place in a totally different part of my journey. And I read the same section and it's like, oh boy, I really wish I would have understood what they really meant, because now I can kind of work in what they really meant for me to do.
A lot of times what I'll do is I'll highlight sections in the book that mean something to me. No one wants a book after I'm done with it, by the way, but they'll highlight stuff or mark things in the book to say, here's stuff that I think is pertinent. And then 30 days later, I'll go back and thumb through the things I highlighted to say, all right, is this still pertinent or did it just hit me at the moment? Mm-hmm. And that's been pretty helpful for me.
Yeah. So you mentioned listening to books. So Audible only more for your personal, like when you're working out. I listen to 100% of my books. In fact, even I've been able to meet some pretty famous authors, and I always give them a hard time about if it's not on Audible, I'm not going to read it. And they're like, no, here's a signed copy of my book. And I'm like, thank you. Not going to read it until it comes out on Audible, But how, so that's one thing I don't like about audio is I can't go back and just thumb through a book, right? I have no idea where in that book. Well, maybe I do. Beginning, middle, and end, right? Yeah. That's just kind of where I was. Whereas when you actually read a book, you're like, oh, it was somewhere in this chapter, and you can thumb through. So talk about what's your process? Do you ever listen to audiobooks for your business, or do you only read them, physically read them, or what do you do there?
I've listened to a few that I was, particularly if I see one that I think, I don't know if I'm going to like that one or not. I'll listen to it. And then if I get into it and I think, okay, this is really good, then I'll go buy a hard copy and take the time to mark it and keep it. Because I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant, for me at least, to devote too much time to a book from an author that I've never heard of. I don't know. If Gino Wickman writes another book, I'm going to read it. I'm not worried about it. I know that's going to be right. But if it's somebody I've never heard of, and if it's if it's a New York Times bestseller, it's probably worth looking at. But if it's something more obscure, it's hard. You got to figure out if it's really worth devoting your time to.
Yeah. So are you somebody who can start a book, and if you don't like it, you just can stop reading it, or do you have to finish the book whether you like it or not?
Yeah, I pretty much have to finish it. Once I start, I'm committed to it, which is on audio, I'm not that way. On audio, I can listen and be like, yeah, I don't like it, and I'll just walk away. But if I started the book and I have a bookmark, if I'm going to do that, I got to take the bookmark out. Because if the bookmark's there, I know I haven't finished it.
That's interesting. For me, I found I can tell if I really like a book or not, is if when I get in the car, if it doesn't automatically start playing, if I take the time to hit my phone and then hit play. If I don't, and I just sit there in silence, or I listen to the radio, like 2 days will go by, I'm like, oh, I haven't listened to a book, in these last 2 days. And it's like, clearly I'm not into the book I'm reading. I have to finish it, because you never know, like, what's the nugget? What's the little nugget that I was supposed to pick up out of this book? Even though the first 3/4 of it were, so is there a nugget? Maybe I turn up the speed, especially now that Audible can go faster than 3 times, just so I can power through it. But I have to finish it just so I can say, yes, okay, I've read that one. I know it's in it.
Well, and sometimes, like you said, that nugget is there. I read a book, gosh, it's been 15 years ago, called Telecosm. And it was one of the hardest reads I've ever read in my life. It is very scientific, and it's talking specifically about fiber and how fiber is used, and understanding different wavelengths and light and fiber. And I read the book and I thought, holy cow. It was painful. I didn't want to finish it because it hurt so much.
Right.
In reality, I've used what I got from that book many times over. At the time I was reading, and I felt like I was back in high school trying to read a book I didn't want to read.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Now you and I have done a session at Wisp America that we talk about books and literature. And one of the nuggets I took from that I thought was amazing was how you used. I don't remember the site. What's the company that narrows down? It's not the Cliff Notes company, but the one that like pulls out all the main parts of a book, so you just have to read the Cliff Notes version. What was that name of that company?
You know what? And I forgot the name of it as well.
Shucks, we're gonna leave everybody hanging. It's not the Blink List, is it? Is it Blink List or
Blinkist,
short
I think
Blink,
that
Blink,
something like that.
Blinkist? Yeah. So because you had mentioned to me, and I thought it was brilliant that you would read the synopsis of the book. So it's longer than just the back page of the book, but you would read the synopsis or listen to it and be like, yeah, that's a book I want to read. And then you would go get the full book and then read it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really neat thing because it's, with everybody's time, nobody wants to sit there and read books they don't like or doesn't fit what they need. But I thought that was an interesting twist because I hate abridged books because it's like, wait a minute, who decided what the author did or didn't want me to listen to? I want to listen to the full thing, especially when it's like a 10-hour read versus a 6-hour read. You cut a lot of things out of that book. What if it was the story that resonated with me that I needed to know? So I like the reading it, the short form version of it first. And that's a good one. I want to go read all of that.
Well, and I thought it was interesting. They asked almost all of Stephen King's books are unabridged, his audiobooks. And they asked him about it. And he said, if I didn't want it in there, I wouldn't have written it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Very good. So we already talked a little bit about how you take a book and then you implement it into your company. What are some other, like, I'm an owner or I'm an employee, doesn't matter who you are, I want to read a book. What are some other gotchas you have to be careful about that we talked about the gotcha of, well, I read this book this week, so now do this. And then I read this book this week, now do this. What are some other ones that come to your mind that as people start getting into reading books that they should be careful with?
Well, I think also recognizing that a lot of these guys are academics, and not all of them have the actual experience of running a company. I tend to like a book that's written by somebody who's actually done it.
Sure.
So that is appealing to me. The other thing is, I think getting people to be getting your company behind it requires some real discussion. We're as a company, we do a book of the month club. And so we will buy a book. We did, you guys, anybody who hasn't read this, is an outstanding book for management, but for all employees.
Yep.
And I gave this example when we did the show last time, but we bought one of these for all the employees to read. And I thought, man, you can buy books. If you go on eBay, you can get them used for $3 or $4 a book. So it's not overly expensive. But we bought a whole bunch of them and we gave them, basically the only criteria for you to get a book was that you promised you would read it. And we give them out. But then we had some of our employees, I'm watching, because we had a chat room in our Slack just for the book in the month club, and people could just go in there and discuss the book. And I tried to stay quiet and let them talk so that I didn't overpower what was going on. But discussions would go on in there. And then all of a sudden one day I saw somebody say, the other day I went home and my son's not getting good grades and I had to have a level 1 conversation with him. And I was like, wow, that's so cool that he took this thing at work and it made his life better at home. And so that when I now hear people inside our company say, well, we're going to have a level 1 conversation, or it's cool that they really bought into the importance of that.
Yeah, it's that common vernacular, right? It's because you mentioned it earlier. Well, I don't want to have one book teach one thing and one book teach another. Now they're contradictory, and usually they aren't. But you want to make sure everybody kind of has that same. Everybody understands what a level 1 conversation is. So now you get rid of all of that other rhetoric that you have to normally go through if you have to explain, well, this is a level 1, it's just a meeting, it's not that bad, whatever. Now you have something you can place with it and have that conversation, and that's what the books allow you to have the same common vocabulary across your company.
Yep.
It's great. So anything else, any other, I think one that pops into my head while you're thinking about it is, don't just have a bookshelf full of books. I know so many people that are like, oh, this person told me this was a great book, so I bought it. Oh, awesome. Did you read it? Well, no, I didn't have time. And they have like this whole library of books that are unread. And it's like, okay, well, you have to actually do actions, right? You have to do work to read them. Do you have any other words of advice you would give anybody?
Well, interestingly enough, one of the things that I really like is I have this big bookshelf over here full of books. I will pull, as I'm having a conversation with an employee, we'll be talking about something they're having a challenge with, and I'll get up and say, okay, I want you to take this book. I want you to go read this, because this book will apply specifically to the challenge that you're having. We had a group that was struggling. We were asking one of our teams that was struggling to kind of communicate with each other. So I went and grabbed 5 dysfunctions of a team and said, okay, I want you to go home and read this, and then I want you to share it. And that being able to know what's in that library, so that you can take your employees and point them to the right book, the one that's actually going to be helpful, I think is really, it makes them feel like, okay, he knows what he's talking about. He's not just making stuff up.
Yeah. So I like how you do that, where you have the conversation first, and then you think, oh, the book will help you. I know sometimes I've read a book and I'm like, this person has to read this book. So then you walk up to them and you're like, hey, I think this book will help you. And it's, how to get along at work, or how to be a better manager. And you're like, I know the title seems a little blunt, but
yeah, pull it out here real quick. I'll show you. So one of our employees, and some of you have heard this before, but one of our employees said to me, hey, I've got a book that we should add to our reading list. He said, can I suggest a book for the next one? And I said, sure. And he said, we should get this one. And I thought, that's a kind of an indictment of me. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Actually,
right.
A book. But when they suggested, I thought, gee, was that pointed at me?
Right. Yeah. It's interesting as you read that, but you're right. If you, we try to pick up all the different bits and pieces of books and help. But when we get our managers or people who are growing, just employees in general, I think that's great. I used to, I don't do it anymore, but I used to, like, anytime I read a really good book, I would go buy a copy or two and then just have it on my shelf for that exact reason. Like, I would tell somebody, oh, I think, Good to Great is the best book in the world. And then they're like, oh, I haven't read it yet. So then I would hand them the book, and that was kind of my gift to them. I kind of signed the inside saying, hey, I hope this helps you and everything. Gotten away from that. But it's cool that you're able to do that and be able to have the right book at the right time for people to be able to review.
And I think too that I love to read the business books, and I like a good biography. Talks about different what people have done. I read, it's a little bit to tackle, but I read Snowball.
Oh yes, yeah, it's a long book. Yep,
great book. There's another one that I've got here, Driven, which is about Larry Miller. Larry H. Miller owned the Utah Jazz, and he started as a parts manager in a auto dealership and ended up buying dealerships and grew it. So it's a really interesting book about him. So those types of books I've liked, but I also like to pick books that are not at all business related to kind of throw in the mix. So I don't know if you've read The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho.
Not yet.
Really, really good book. And it's some of his other books are really heavy. That one's not so heavy, and it's a good book. I'm a big Will Smith fan, and it's Will Smith's favorite book. That's where I heard about it, was from him. Yeah, I like that. It's interesting that, like, almost all American authors, if you read their books, we expect a happy ending. That's just how it works. We do. Everything has a happy ending. You start reading international books, and there's not so many happy endings.
Not so many. Interesting.
And they're very interesting, kind of how they cover them. And a lot of books, the more well-read you are, you'll hear people say, when you hear somebody say that's a catch-22, do you know what that means? When people say that's a very Machiavellian attitude, have you read Niccolo Machiavelli? Do you know like what it means? Or you hear Brave New World, and that's Aldous Huxley, and that's a science fiction book that's it's been around a long time. So some of those books, being well read in a lot of those ways, also helps you, because you'll pick a nugget out of one of those books that maybe wasn't intended as a business thing, but it's still great to read.
Yeah, I think that you bring up a good point. Like some people are, oh, I can't do self-help. It's so boring. All it is just what I should do, what I shouldn't do, and everything. I like to read any Patrick Lencioni book because it's the fable version. So, you literally, I was in a meeting. I had read The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team for like the third time. And I was sitting in a meeting and like flashbacks to the book. And I was like, oh, that was this person. That's this person. And that's this person. And I'm the CEO and I need to respond this way because it wasn't a business application I was doing. I was following the story in my head. And it made it a lot easier for me to remember how I should respond or how the book wanted me to respond and, and everything. So it was definitely neat reading a story. So if you have a hard time, for any of the listeners out there, if you have a hard time reading a self-help book or a how-to book, start with some of the fables because it's kind of actually gets you. I have my kids listen to them in the car and they're like, oh, Dad, don't listen without us. You have to wait for us. We want to know what happens. I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of cool.
So this was a really interesting book that we had our people read. Have you read that? This one, it's a very interesting book about how you create great habits. Again, it's kind of self-improvement, not as much a business book, but great. The other thing I was going to suggest, and I forgot to mention this the last time we did it, but if you're not really into reading, like if you struggle really wanting to read, this is a great way to do it as well. So Harvard Business Review, this whole book is 10 separate articles from Harvard Business Review specifically on managing people. So you don't have to say, oh, I'm going to tackle this, but you can get 10 different perspectives out of this one book. And that's a good way to read, especially if you're saying, hey, I'm not sure I'm ready to jump in and read it. You can pick one of those articles and read it, and it's pretty useful.
Yeah, and I would have to say, BS to people not being into reading. I'm allowed to say that because I have dyslexia. So I read at a 6th grade level, yet I read a book a week, unless I don't like the book, apparently. Then it's like 2 weeks. It's like, oh, man, I better just finish that so I can get onto one. But I listen to them, and that's the way I do it. I don't read a book. I can't even tell you the last book I read start to finish. Maybe never. Maybe it was, a Go Dog Go or something. But really, it's about, if you want to, you have to make the decision. And whether you want to physically read them or you want to listen to them, there's so many ways to do that now. Whereas before, when I was going through college or high school, my mom had to read all my books into a tape. And then it just happened to be on my little tape player that you could speed up the sound. I was like, ooh, this is a neat feature. So I would speed it up. And then when I got into college, I used Recording for the Blind and Dyslexic, where they would actually have a professional person read it into tape. But I had to mess with all the tapes. Now with your smartphone on everybody's hip, it's amazingly easy and it's super, super great. Most of us, maybe if you're working from home, you don't have a commute, but most of us have a commute or could have a commute here soon. So I think it's just a choice. You have to choose whether you want to do it.
Well, and it's interesting too that you mentioned your kids will be in the car. Creating that as a habit with your kids and your family is an interesting thing. My wife is just in the next few hours, she'll be crossing the border into Canada. She's going to visit her mom because Canada finally opened their borders.
Oh yeah, no quarantine for 14 days in the hotel with a guard outside.
3 days quarantine. Yeah, so she's happy because she hasn't seen her mom in 2 years.
Yeah.
But we got. I used to, when she and I would drive, I would play audiobooks. And so she kind of got hooked on it. And so now she's like, I said, are you okay for the drive? She said, are you kidding? I've got like 11 hours. I got so many books I want to listen to. She's excited for the drive so she can listen.
Right. Yeah. So I like 3 times speed. That's what I like. My family, not so much. So they would make me listen to it at 1 time speed. And I was just crawling in my skin. It's so slow. So then I would nudge it up on them, and they notice it all. And then some reason, like my phone would reset or whatever, and we'd go back to 1 times. And like, Daddy, this is too slow. Why'd you slow it down? I'm like, all right. I got them up to about 1.75, maybe 2, and they, I mean, twice as fast. There's more than enough books out there to read.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So kind of wrapping up everything. Thanks so much for talking to us about this. Any words of advice? Any last kind of comments that you want to help somebody get into books? Any book that really changed anything? Any lasting comments, I guess?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing for me is just jump in and do it.
Okay.
If you could look at it and you say, "Oh, there's this huge stack of books, and I don't think I can read them all," I think just pick one, jump in and do it, and pick. I mean, if you want to pick something light, pick something like this that's just got 10 different things in it, but pick something and jump in and do it.
And do it. Yeah, and we do have a question that came in. So it says, how do you persuade your employees to read or listen to books that may help them in their job? So I know we talked about your book club and what you have, but what other ways? I mean, obviously we carry a big stick. I'm going to pay you, I'm going to force you, but that's not the goal. What are some other things you're able to do to help them want to do the reading?
Well, one of the things we did is we let people know subtly, but we let them know that the people who are actively participating in this are interested in improving their managerial skills, and that would be a good sign as to who was open to promotion to managerial positions. Mm-hmm. And so for a lot of them, that was a big motivator.
Yeah, I think that brings up such a good point. It's we do Built to Lead at Wisper, which is kind of your core and who you are as a person. And then we do have other books. We have our managers reading books and then giving presentations to other managers because we broke them into groups. And while I would love to mandate it all, then they would begrudgingly go through it and not really pick up anything. You can tell who's reading it and who's not. And you can tell who's growing. And those are the people that get promoted, that get the raises because they're bringing more to the table than anybody else. And that takes time, right? You can only lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink. So you stand up, like we just had 2-day training with all of our managers, and we told them all about the books that we wanted to read and all the training. But you really could tell who actually took it to heart and was actually doing the actions and failing and trying and learning. And then who was like, no, I got this. I don't need to learn this stuff. And they think they got it covered and they think that you can't tell. Oh my goodness. But you can definitely tell. And I think, what's that saying that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care? If you have that relationship with your employees, especially one-on-one, and you really want to see them succeed and you really think that, hey, this is the book that they need or should have, be persuasive and be consistent in asking them. And the thing I had to learn, I did not learn it early on. I learned it probably a couple of years ago. It dawned on me. It doesn't matter how much I want you to want to be better. You have to want to be better. And I can't beat myself up. As long as I provided every avenue I possibly could and every reason why, ultimately it's their decision to want to do it. Now, it gets to be my decision whether they stay right where they are and never grow anymore, or never move out in the company, or they don't stay in the company because we're growing past their capabilities. That's my choice, and I have to be able to see that. But if I've done everything I possibly can and they've still chosen not to do it, it doesn't hurt my feelings when I then have to make the decision that they're no longer a manager or they're not able to stay where they are.
Yeah, and I think part of it too for us was that, when we had the Book of the Month Club and there was this discussion going on, once we got a few management people to buy it, then it was kind of part of being in the cool kids club. You
Sure.
want to sit at the cool table during lunch. And so it became, we needed to create that culture. And that was the way we did it initially. Was we only went to a few managers and gave them the book and talked about it. And then other people were like, how come I can't read it? How come I? And then they wanted to be part of the club.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. I like that. A little bit of a scarcity. Oh my goodness. So, yeah. Yep. All right. So we have another post. They say they love your job title, CEO and janitor.
Yeah, it's. I will tell you that I've plunged more toilets than I would like to.
Yeah, I agree. It's as CEO, you have to do everything.
Yep.
And it's okay. Like in one of the books, good to great, right? So we talked about Jim Collins's books as Built to Last and everything, but it's good to great. He talks about putting the right people in the right seat. And I love that analogy, but he talks about a bus, and the only person doing any work on a bus is the bus driver.
Yep.
So I like the sailing analogy, where if I'm the captain of my ship, it's okay for me to come down and be the janitor, right? If I'm the CEO, and it's okay for me to be the janitor when it needs to get done. But if I'm always the janitor, then no one's being the CEO or no one's being the captain. And there's a lot of things as CEO that I would prefer to be doing. Like on a day when it's beautiful weather, I'd like to be a tower climber, because you know what? I get to go see the sights, and I'm not afraid of heights, and this is great. Or, gee, I'd like to be the sales guy because I get to close that deal and I get a high off of closing a big deal. But we have to remember, though, that as the CEO, or the department head or whatever it is, you have to do some of those things that you don't like to do.
And I think you're exactly right. One of the things is, as I read some of these management books, was that the CEO job requires sometimes making the hard decisions and doing things that have to be done. And sometimes I would read one of these books and I'm like, all right, fine, I'll do the thing I know I'm supposed to do. So it was good for me to have somebody, because I've got a couple of employees that I can count on to tell me when I'm being stupid. And I really value those people.
Yes.
I value the ones who will say, Layne, that's a bad idea. Don't do that.
Right.
I don't want somebody, I tell them all the time, if we're all going to agree, we don't need a meeting. I'll just send out an email.
Right.
I need your opinion. And so sometimes I needed a book to kind of give me that same thing, to say, all right, you're being dumb. Quit being dumb.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think you're the one that turned me on to the book called The Hard Things About the Hard Thing About Hard Things, right? I think was the title of it.
One of my favorite books, not a G-rated book, but
no, not a G-rated book, but it's still a very good one.
It points out sometimes things are really, really hard. And one of my favorite things is in that book, there's a section that talks about struggling, and it says, you will struggle. Mark Zuckerberg struggled. Steve Jobs struggled. They made it. But that doesn't mean you're going to make it. You might not. That's why it's called struggle. It's hard. And I love that part of it, because it says, just because you can't always say, well, it's going to work someday. It might not, but you're going to learn from it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the struggles with my dyslexia, it's getting to the point where it's almost sexy to have dyslexia, or to have, high functioning Asperger's or whatever, because there's a lot of positive traits, which are really, really good. But I don't want to take away all struggles I went through necessarily, because that's who made me who I am today, that made running a business easy compared to getting through elementary school. Right? If I didn't have struggles in elementary school, I'm running a business, and I had to talk to 197 financial institutions to solve my letter of credit problem. Well, if I hadn't struggled through elementary school and high school, maybe I would have stopped at 10, or maybe I would have stopped at 15, or maybe 72 was the number. But I just wasn't going to stop until I solved the problem, because of that resilience that I built up dealing with my dyslexia and having to go through all that. So sometimes the struggles are meant there for a good reason, right? A good purpose. All right. Well, any other questions from anybody? Happy to answer them. Let's see if some of those come through. Thank you so much, Layne, for being on. It's always a joy to talk to you, and hope things go well with your family and your wife's visit up to Canada. Hopefully it hasn't changed too much up there.
Yeah, she's excited, and I'm already excited for her to come back. And it's 2 weeks, but I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, everybody else out there, remember you can follow us on Facebook, watch our YouTube channel on YouTube, Wisper University. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.